Today we'll be covering how to create intelligent enterprise grade copilots using Copilot Studio and Azure OpenAI Service. My name is Prashant G. Boyer, and I currently work as Cloud Solution Architect at Applied Information Sciences. And I'm also recipient of Microsoft MVP Award, and my current categories are AI and business application. And I work at AIS Reston, Virginia, USA office. All right, so these are the things we're going to cover today. We'll start with why we have to invest time in building copilots. If you have to build copilots, what are some of the out-of-the-box copilots available in Microsoft ecosystem? To build any intelligent copilot, you need to integrate that copilot with Azure AI services. So we'll talk about what are some of the AI services are there. I will also talk about Azure Open AI services. And the majority of the time we'll be spending today is talking about Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is the rebranded product. Its earlier name is Power Virtual Agent. We'll have demos, key takeaways, and Q&A. Please feel free to ask your questions. You can post your questions in the chat, or you can also use raise your hand feature in Microsoft Team as well. So I always have this slide in my talk. It doesn't really matter what kind of tool or technology you're using. What really matters is what kind of problem you're trying to solve. So today, I may be talking about Copilot Studio, or I may be using a totally different product to create a custom Copilot. But your end user, what they really care is what's the end product is and whether that end product is going to solve their problem or not. So this is a very interesting comment made by Satya during the last year's Ignite session. He said, Microsoft is now the Copilot company. What does that really tells us is from now onwards, Microsoft, most of the focus from Microsoft is going to be on creating copilots, and those will be out of the box copilots such as Microsoft 65 Copilot or Azure Copilot. But along with that, they will be also investing a lot of time and energy in creating services such as Copilot Studio that we can use to create a custom Copilot. This is a profound shift from the direction and vision from Microsoft, because if you were following some of the keynotes from Satya during the keynote of 2014 or 2013, he did mention that Microsoft now is the cloud first and mobile first company, and from that now they are saying it's a Copilot company. So we all knew, like from in the last 8 to 9 years, there was been tremendous focus from Microsoft to create mobile application and also to migrate a legacy application from on-prem to the cloud. The same kind of focus now we'll see where they'll be launching a lot of services for copilots. And copilots are a kind of new form of chatbots, and they are powered by some of the latest AI services, such as large language model behind the scene. So why copilots are getting popular? Because they provide us a more natural computer interaction, and they can also help you to automate repetitive tasks and free up the resources. Copilots can be available all the time, and they can be also available wherever you are. For example, if you're using web, or you're using mobile phone, or you're using a desktop. But one of the main reasons why copilots are getting popular is because they can help you to automate some of the mundane repetitive tasks and free up the time or resources. If your implementation is right, Copilot can also adapt to the user depending on the circumstances. And you can think of Copilot as another way of providing support, or another way of supplementing the existing help desk or existing processes. And if you use products in Microsoft ecosystem, then you can build your Copilot once, and you can use that Copilots across multiple products or services that are supported. And another shift that we are seeing is now users are expecting consumerization of the enterprise. What does that really mean? Let's say you're getting familiar with using Copilots or ChatGPT, or you're getting familiar using, let's say, Azure Copilot or Power Platform Copilot. More and more users will now start expecting the similar experience if you're creating any custom app. And that's where the Copilot Studio or other ways of creating Copilots come really handy. Now, majority of you may already agree with this statement, like the best programming language is the natural language. And Microsoft started pouring into the Copilot starting GitHub. So they launched GitHub Copilot in 2021. And last year they did a survey and they identified that 40% of the code in GitHub now was assisted by the Copilots. And after the success of GitHub Copilot, and after the success of ChatGPT, the copilots are coming everywhere. You may have already be heard about the copilots in Microsoft 65 or Power Platform or GitHub or Fabric Copilot. Copilots are pretty much coming every major product that is there in Microsoft ecosystem. Some of the copilots will be free, for example, Power Platform Copilot, but some of the copilots you have to pay additional licensing fee, for example, Microsoft 65 Copilot or GitHub Copilot. Now, let's say if you had to build your own custom copilot for your in-house business process, and you're working for an enterprise, then any enterprise application should have this following key features. You should have a really good security. You should have a scalability, integration with other line of business system and other services. You should have a good reporting and dashboard support. It should be also a user friendly. Administration wise, it should be good, and also it should be easy to maintain as well. So if you are building any kind of custom AI solution, especially any Copilot, these are some of the building blocks that we have in Microsoft ecosystem. We can either start with AI Studio, or we can start with Copilot Studio. Copilot Studio is part of kind of Power Platform. It's built for more low code, no code scenario, but you can also use AI Studio, which is part of Azure AI. And without adding any kind of AI services, your Copilot will not be that helpful. And when it comes to adding the AI services, you can go with Azure's AI services, OpenAI service, and you can also use Azure AI content safety. And depending on which way you go when it comes to choosing the platform for your custom Copilot, you can use prompt flow or a semantic kernel. So what are Azure AI services? So the core AI services in Microsoft ecosystem are part of Azure AI. And under the machine learning, we have Azure Machine Learning Service. We can use this service to uh, create custom machine learning model or use open source model and deploy them as a web service. We can also use customizable AI models from Microsoft. We have customizable AI models as vision, speech, language decision, and Azure OpenAI. And under scenario-based services, we have bot service, Azure AI Search, Document Intelligence, Video Indexer, a Metrics Advisor, and Immersive Reader. Some of the services here also went through the name change. For example, the earlier name of Azure AI Search is Cognitive Search, and the earlier name of Document Intelligence is Form Recognizer. Now, these services are geared more towards developers and data scientists, but they are also the first-party services. What does that mean is not only we can use these services, but other product groups within Microsoft also use the same services. For example, Power Platform and Microsoft 65, they also use the same services that we have access to as part of Azure AI. And in this particular session, we'll be focusing more on the Copilot Studio and Azure OpenAI Service. So what are Azure OpenAI Services? Pretty much everyone, I think, in this room already knows about ChatGPT. The creator of ChatGPT is OpenAI, and Microsoft and OpenAI has a tighter partnership where Microsoft invested a lot of money. And as part of that partnership, Microsoft has exclusive access and rights to some of the OpenAI's IP or the base models. So as part of that partnership, a lot of IP or models that are available from OpenAI, such as GPT 3.5, Codex, or DALI, are now available to us as part of Azure OpenAI. So basically, what Microsoft has done is they have basically lifted and OpenAI trained models and hosting them on Azure. And since they are available to us as an Azure service, they have benefits of Azure security. For example, we can use managed identity, virtual networks, private endpoint, and we can also implement integration with other Azure services such as Azure AI Service, Azure Machine Learning, and it also has inbuilt abuse monitoring and content filtering. And since it's part of Azure, the pricing is based on the consumption. And we have we can access this service via REST API. There is a Python SDK available. We also have a .NET SDK. And also we can use or access these services using web interface via Azure OpenAI Studio or via Azure AI Studio, which is the latest service available to us. These are some of the latest models which are available as part of the Azure OpenAI service. We have GPT-4, GPT 3.5, we have embedding model, we have DALI and Whisper. The version of this model and its availability are highly reliant on region. So if you create Azure OpenAI service, and if you don't see any specific model in your service, then most likely the next thing you need to check is in which region you have created your Azure AI service. Okay, I see a question is when we use AI Studio versus Copilot Studio. So the quick answer to that is, to use AI Studio, you need to have access to Azure. Okay, and that's I have seen like a restrict that is a easier said than done, especially in a lot of other organization. And you will be using prompt flow, and there are a lot of things that goes behind the scene when you use Azure AI Studio. So Azure AI Studio is built for pro code solutions, whereas Copilot Studio, it is part of Power Platform, and anyone can use Copilot Studio as long as you have a license for it. It is very easy to use Copilot Studio and create a custom Copilots. So depending on like whether you would like to go with a pro code approach versus low code approach, that can be a good deciding factor for you to use AI Studio versus Copilot Studio. Another interesting thing you will notice is if you go with AI Studio, you still have to decide what kind of service you will be using for your user interface. In Copilot Studio, you don't have to do that. Those kind of things are already taken care for you. Uh, Azure OpenAI Service is a gated service, so it's not available to you even if you have access to Azure. You have to submit a specific form. So just search for the Azure OpenAI Service application. Then you have to fill out the application justifying why you need access. And if your application get approved, then your subscription will be whitelisted, and you can create the Azure OpenAI Service in that. Now, that brings up to the question then, why I need Azure OpenAI Service, since what Microsoft has basically done is they have just lifted and shifted the models from OpenAI, because now I can either use the services from OpenAI directly, or I can go with the Azure OpenAI. So when you use services directly from OpenAI, you basically directly interacting with Azure OpenAI's Azure tenant, whereas when you go with the Azure OpenAI service, you create your own Azure OpenAI service in your own subscription, and whatever interaction you or whatever the app you're building, that app will only be communicating with your own service, and the other customers or other tenants will not have any kind of visibility or will not have any kind of access to it. Another major difference is Microsoft has made commitment that they will not be using your data to train any kind of base service based model, and also they will not be sending your data to the backend OpenAI as well. So to use or to create a good co-pilots, you need to use some powerful AI services. And one of the powerful AI service you can use is some of the GPT models from Microsoft. So what is exactly the GPT? GPT is generative pre-trained transformer. And if you had to visualize that, so you can think about this way. Like what OpenAI has done is they have used all the information from available on public internet, and they have trained the base models. And that information can be in the form of books, website, journals, Wikipedia entries, code repositories, and they have used that information and their proprietary GPT-4 model and trained that. And that model now is very good, and it can perform various complicated tasks. For example, it can follow instruction. It can summarize the content for you. It can extract the content. It can help you to classify the content, translate the content. It can also help you with the code generation and code explanation as well. However, if the best analogy I can give you here is how to treat large language model. So treat the large language model as a bright intern. Imagine a scenario where you're working for a company and if your manager comes to you and saying, we have this tight deadline. You have to deliver a product in 1 month, and to boost your team, we are giving you 10 bright interns. Those bright interns are really good. Out of those 10, 4 are really good C# developer, 4 are really good Power Platform developer, and rest of the 2 are really good business analyst. Uh, However, just adding those interns to your team is not going to be enough. You have to explicitly 10 interns, like what exactly you need from them. And if the interns are good enough, they will be basically giving you the deliverable. But you will not be using those deliverables directly into your production application. You'll always be verifying those. The same concept here is you have access to really bright interns. All you have to do is give them instruction, and they will give you a really good output. However, you need to verify that output before you start using that in your application. And just like your intern, that large language model will not have any information or any insight about your organization own data or processes. Same thing. So you have to teach those interns. There's a concept called grounding in large language model. So you have to do that as part of usage of large language models over there. And that's why it's very, very important to always have humans in the loop. So when it comes to creating custom copilots, first thing you have to implement is you have to create, you have to use AI services, but you also have to think about what kind of UI you will be creating for it. So there are various ways you can create the user interface. You can go with the traditional route of ASP.NET website. You can use React or Angular app. You can also go with the Microsoft 65 Copilot extensibility model. You can use Microsoft Bot Framework, or you can go with the Copilot Studio or Power Virtual Agent. And you can also use other OpenAI open source frameworks like Rasa as well. So in this session, we'll be focusing more on the how to use Copilot Studio to create custom copilots. So Copilot Studio is part of Microsoft Power Platform, and you can use it to create custom copilots. Everything is based on the drag and drop functionality, and you can also use PowerFX, which is a low-code programming language for some advanced scenarios. Since it's a part of Power Platform, it's a really great integration with other Power Platform products such as Power Automate and Power BI. And you have to just build your Power Copilot once, and you can use it on various supported channels or devices. Since it's a part of Power Platform, as far as ALM is concerned, you have to follow the same principles that you follow for Power Apps or Power Automate a solution. This is the high-level architecture of Copilot Studio, where for the permission, you will be using Microsoft Entra ID. It is hosted using Azure Bot Service. And for the generative AI features, it is behind the scene using Azure Open AI Service and Azure AI Search. It has a good integration with Dynamics 65 and other contact centers. And Power Automate is a gateway to the outside world from Copilot Studio. And since Power Automate has more than 1,000 plus pre-built connectors, you can use that, or you can also build your own custom connectors as well. And Copilot Studio has support for many channels that you can use. And since it has support for many channels, I just had to build my Copilot once, and I can use it across many supported channels. And everything you create in Copilot gets stored into the dataverse, and you have a good reporting available as part of a Power BI reports over here. And when it comes to adding the conversational AI support, so for the conversational AI, the Copilot Studio behind the scene uses a lot of Azure AI services, such as Bot Framework, Azure AI Studio, and Azure AI Search behind the scene for you. Let me just quickly answer the question in the chat window. Do you have an idea on the cost of using AI Studio? Okay, so that is a loaded question. I cannot really answer that without actually going through your scenario. So Copilot Studio's pricing is based on the number of messages your Copilot is exchanging with the users. Whereas when you go with AI Studio, the cost is dependent on a lot of factors, like whether you are using the prompt flow or not, whether you are using which particular GPT model you are using, which are you using Azure AI Search or not. If you are using Azure AI Search, then that its cost is a little bit different. So think of this as when you create your own custom application using professional pro code approach, like using React or C Sharp, and you're creating your own mobile web app, then you have to factor into a lot of different services and finally calculate the cost. Whereas let's say if you go with Power Apps, then depending on how you're licensing Power Apps, your cost may vary. So same is concept here, like depending on your situation, you just have to do the math. I cannot really tell which one is going to be cheaper because it's all going to be dependent on the usage. If your Copilot is going to use a lot, if you're going to exchange millions and millions of messages with the Copilot, then probably going with AI Studio will be cheaper as compared to going with the Copilot Studio. However, if you go with AI Studio, most likely you will be paying a lot more as an upfront cost as compared to the Copilot Studio. I hope that answer your question. So some of the key terms is topics. Topic represent the conversation flow roadmap based on a different needs. So you can have topics for HR, you can have topics for IT, and you can have topics for finance. Entities are used to translate data supplied in text and extract it into something that can be easily consumed in a bot. So when it comes to the Copilot, the goal is to mimic the human conversation as much as possible. And we as a human has a tendency to provide the similar information in multiple format. And that's where the entities really help, where I can provide let's say I ask someone a question about when are you going on vacation, or what kind of what kind of date you're looking for this particular operation. I may provide that information in multiple format. Uh, and if I use the correct entity, that is date and time for it, the Copilot Studio behind the scene will extract the correct information and store that so that I can later on use in my business logic. Nodes is to connect the different topics and questions and messages. And you can use variables to capture the data during the conversation. Synonyms, you can use the natural language accuracy, and we can use topics. We can use the triggers to start a topic. Entities assist in natural language understanding and also help us to extract the data from the conversation. We already have a lot of out-of-the-box entities, and you can create the custom entities. Another thing you have to keep in mind is so when it comes to the Copilot Studio, we can use the natural language understanding. It comes with the out-of-the-box standard NLU that you can use, but you can also use the custom NLU from the Azure as well. However, when you go with the custom NLU from Azure, you have to use the language service, and you have to pay the additional the licensing cost for you. You can also use the dynamic chaining, which is the additional concept or additional thing that is available to you as part of generative AI. But if you go with dynamic chaining, then you have to pay the additional licensing cost for it. Now let's talk about some of the generative AI capabilities. So when it comes to when it comes to creating a custom copilot, is very important that you add the support for generative AI, because without the support for generative AI, we had to factor in, we had to think about all the different scenarios and different topics and add the support for it accordingly, which is very tiresome and time consuming. Using generative AI, we can offload a lot of unknown topics directly to the generative AI capability and take care of that. So these are the various options we have when it comes to the generative AI. And now we'll be covering those options one by one. So the most easiest one is using any publicly available website. And as long as the data is crawled by the Bing search, you can use that for the generative answers. So yeah, so the next option is then using your information from a SharePoint Online. And this option is really good when your data is in SharePoint Online and you have to implement some kind of security trimming for it. The advantage of going with SharePoint Online is I can provide the URL of a SharePoint Online site, and if any document are there and those documents are already indexed by the SharePoint Online search behind the scene, then I can use that information to get a generative answer. Now, why we need to do these extra steps? You may be asking, because when you ask any question to the ChatGPT just directly give you the answer, like what exactly we're trying to achieve using this generative AI option. So the earlier slide I showed, the base model for from the OpenAI, like the GPT 3.5 or GPT 4, those are trained using the publicly available data. But if you're building a custom copilot, you may not want to just give the answers from the publicly available information. You may want to give the answers from your own organization data. And that's where all these options that are available here come handy. For example, if you're building a custom copilot and your organization information is already available on a publicly facing website, then you will go with the public data. If you are creating a custom copilot for your organization's internal use, for example, you would like to create a custom copilot for HR, or you would like to create a custom copilot for finance, then the approach you can take is you have your information in a SharePoint Online site, and you configure that SharePoint Online site with the generative AI features of Copilot Studio. However, this out-of-the-box actions, like out-of-the-box option of using public data or SharePoint Online site, or there is a third option of uploading the documents directly into the Copilot Studio, has some limitations. For example, when you go with the public data, your website has to be indexed by Bing search, and also you can provide maximum 4 URLs. And also the URLs has to be 2 level deep. Another thing is with the SharePoint Online is you can provide only the 4 SharePoint Online site or OneDrive for business site. When it comes to the upload document, the restriction there is you can have maximum 3 MBs files up to the max up to 3 MBs, and there is no security trimming available over there. And that's where going with Azure OpenAI on your own data comes very handy. And one of the good thing about Copilot Studio is you can always sign up for the free trial. So you come here, go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com, and if you don't have access, you can sign up for the free trial. Then click on new Copilot. Let's give it a name. I will call it as a Power Platform Bootcamp, and let's call it as Demo 02. And I can select all these supported languages. And here I can configure the generative AI, but I will not do it right now. And I can always click on advanced option. And here I can specify the schema name and also the name of the solution. And I can also provide the icon name. And if I just click create, then the Copilot will start getting created. And it will take a minute or two for this Copilot to get a finish. So instead of waiting for this, let me quickly show you the overview of the another Copilot. So once the Copilot is created, if you go to the overview page, this is where you'll be seeing the information about your Copilot, like what are all the help information. If you scroll down, you'll go to the learning resources, the support community, the production videos, and also the data and security and privacy. If you click on the topics and plugins, this is where you'll see some out of the box topics already created for you. And you'll see some system topics as well. And those are already configured for you, and you can modify these topics here. You can also modify the behavior of this system topics as well. And these are some helpful topics or lessons are there for you. And here you can go and create custom topics. And while creating the custom topics, you can either use create topics from blank, or you can also create topics using Copilot. So now we have Copilot for Copilot Studio as well. Here you can see all the out of the box entities, and you can create the new entities as well. Here you can see the analytics of your Copilot. And here you can go and publish your Copilot. If you expand this, then here you can see the option for the conversational AI plugins and AI plugins. And if you go to the settings, this is where you see the details of the Copilot. For example, I can specify the name, I can specify the icon, I can use the other AI integration tools. I can use the generative AI here. So here I can configure the URL of the public facing website, or I can upload a file, or I can also specify the Copilot content moderation. When it goes to the channels, by default, it will be available on Microsoft Teams, but you can also deploy to other supported channels as well. When it comes to the customer engagement hub, you have support for omni-channel, live person, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and you can also add some other custom engagement hub as well. When it comes to security, here you can configure the authentication and also share this with other users when it comes to modification of this Copilot. Here you can add custom skills. For this, you need to use pro code languages. And here you can select the NLU. You can go with the out of the box NLU, or you can use your own NLU as well. And here you can add the support for the additional the languages. Let me quickly see if there are any questions in the chat window. Okay, perfect. No questions. So let me quickly show you so if you go with let me go to the last. Okay, so if you go with the public website, so these are some of the things that you'll observe with the public website. So first thing is, when it comes to the ease of development, all you have to do is you have to just specify in the generative AI, you just have to specify the URL of your website. So here I have specified the website of my company, and that's it. So create a out of the box Copilot, go to the generative AI section, provide the URL of your website. And here, if I go and ask any question, for example, what is the mission statement of AIS. And if this website is indexed by Bing search, then I should get an answer within a few seconds. All right, so the answer came, and also the answer came with the citation as well. So when you go with this particular option, so ease of development is very easy. You don't have any control over the answer because you're relying on the Bing search. You also don't have flexibility on which GPT model to use. You don't have any dependence on Azure subscription. You need Copilot Studio license, and since you are using Copilot Studio, you can do integration with other. You can have that Copilot available on Microsoft Teams, Outlook, Facebook. Citations is also there. There is no support for out-of-the-box chat history, and the results are not going to be security trained. When you go with upload document, you're basically uploading the document inside the Copilot Studio here. And when you upload a document, everything gets stored into the dataverse, and it will not have any citation. And also the results are not going to be the security trim as well. When it comes to using SharePoint Online, so basically you're going with, you have to basically just use the URL of your SharePoint Online site. And another restriction is the bot cannot be a public bot. So the user has to authenticate first before you start using it. So when it comes to this, one of the key thing is you don't have any dependency on Azure, and the results will be the security trim. What does that mean is if I use a SharePoint Online site and after out of 10 users, if only 6 users have access to one document library and rest of the users don't, then only those 6 users will get the results from those document library. So this is one of the preferred way of creating your own custom copilot, especially for your custom in-house processes, because it's very easy to use and there is no dependency on Azure, and the results are security. And only thing you have to keep in mind is you just paying for the license of Copilot Studio here. If you don't want to pay for the license for Copilot Studio, you can use the SharePoint Framework web part for the UI, and you can use the Azure OpenAI with your own data. For that, you need to use the rack pattern. If you go with this one, then you are not paying for the license for Copilot Studio. However, you're paying the licensing fees. However, you're paying the licensing fee for the Azure OpenAI service, and whatever other services you have used for the rack pattern, which in case of Azure, you'll be going with uh, Azure AI search. There is no additional cost of Copilot Studio. However, your experience is going to be limited to the SharePoint Online only. Another thing you can do is you can replace your SharePoint Online site with a web app, SharePoint Framework web part with web app. So no additional cost for Copilot Studio, but your experience will be limited to web experience. And also you need to have a web application hosted somewhere, which you will be using. The most flexible and most expensive option is using Copilot Studio with Azure OpenAI Service. Here you need to use both the license for the Copilot Studio, and you also need uh, the access to Azure OpenAI Service. Here you need the license for Copilot Studio, and you also need the license for Azure OpenAI Service, and also any other technology that you may have used for the implementation of the Azure AI search and the corresponding the rack pattern. Here, you can implement security trimming on the documents per se. The limitation is based on how many SharePoint Online sites you can use. So for example, we can use maximum 4 SharePoint Online websites, sites or OneDrive for business site. And it is based on the limitation of SharePoint Online sites. So if you go on Microsoft 365 documentation, and if you see how many content you can upload to a SharePoint Online site, it basically follows that. So as long as your content is in SharePoint Online, it will basically use Microsoft Graph behind the scene to extract that and show you the results. Okay. All right. Next is, okay. So now when you have to use Azure OpenAI Gen AI answer using Azure OpenAI Service. So before that, let me quickly show you the demo of using a SharePoint Online site. So here I have configured the SharePoint Online site here. And if you see in the SharePoint Online site, I have just uploaded a couple of PDF documents. Okay, and then I deployed this Copilot. And now if I go here and ask any question related to this, and this document has some information about some of the different solution area. So I'm just going to ask that question.
what are different solution areas are there. And if this information is there in any SharePoint online site, it will basically come back with an answer. And while giving the answer, it will also give you the citation information as well. So just waiting for that, and we should be getting that answer soon. All right, so we got the answer, and if I hover over this answer is actually coming from the document. If you look closely towards the bottom of the screen, it's actually coming from this particular SharePoint online site over here. Okay, now let me show you a quick demonstration on GenAI answer using Azure OpenAI service with your own data. So for that, first thing first, you need your Azure OpenAI service for it. And if you're not familiar with it, what I'll do is I'll just quickly go to the portal.azure.com and you need to create an Azure OpenAI service first. And I have already created the service. And once the page loads, I will just go over there. And inside that service, once this service is there, Azure OpenAI, I will be opening that in Azure OpenAI Studio because I would be just creating the service is not going to be enough. You have to make sure you have some models deployed there as well. And what controls really like what kind of models you can deploy is in which region the service is created. So if I go to the model, so these are the three different models I have deployed in the service: GPT-4, GPT-4 32K, GPT 3.5 Turbo. And if I go to the chat playground, this is where I can configure add your own data. And what I have done is I have already indexed some context using Azure AI Search, and I'll be using that. So if I go to the data source, I'll go with Azure AI Search, and then I'll be using the name of the Azure AI service, and then I'll be using a specific Azure AI specific index here, and then I'll be configuring the rest of the stuff. Okay, acknowledge, yes, click next, and I'll be going with the keyword-based search, and then click next here. And if I save and close, now in the studio, my chat playground is connected to this particular Azure search index of Azure AI search. And now if I ask a question, let's ask a question, what is prompt engineering? So in this case, now it will not give me the answer from the generic internet database. It will give me the answer from the documents that I have indexed using the Azure AI search. And if you look at the reference is also coming will come back from the documents that I have used. So this is a quick way of implementing rack pattern using Azure AI Search and Azure OpenAI Studio. And if I go and look at view code, so this particular studio will tell me how I can mimic this call using a Postman. So once you figure out how to make this web service call using Postman, all I have to do now is mimic the same thing at the Azure in the Copilot Studio. So the next example I'll be showing you is the same thing I'm doing, but here I'm doing that via the Copilot Studio. So here, let me ask the question here first, show you the answer, and then I'll show you how I have implemented that. So for example, uh, I need help with Azure, okay? And there should be a follow-up question, what kind of help I need? And I ask, what is prompt engineering? And if it is able to understand that, then it will go. It is now communicating with the Azure OpenAI service and the corresponding Azure AI search. And whatever the results are coming back, it will be sending that to the large language model behind the scene, and we should get back an answer within few seconds. All right, so we got the answer. Now let me tell you how exactly we have implemented that. So if I go here inside the Copilot Studio, so all I'm doing is getting the question from the user and passing that question to the Azure OpenAI service as a REST API call using Power Automate. So here, if I click on the Power Automate, so this is the Power Automate I am using. And via this Power Automate, I'm making an HTTP call. And as part of this call, I'm passing the user's question. And inside this HTTP call, I'm also providing the information about which Azure OpenAI service to use, which particular Azure AI search index to use, and which large language model to use, and the corresponding keys for that. So this is the most complicated, this is the most flexible, however, the most expensive option that is available to us when it comes to creating custom copilots using the Azure OpenAI service. So this is the trigger for this is Power Virtual Agent trigger, where I'm getting the input from the as a user question, and then I'm using HTTP action to make the web service call. And whatever the output from the web service call, then I'm using parse JSON to extract the key things, especially the answer, and then returning back to the Power Virtual Agent or the Azure uh, or the Copilot Studio. So this is the most flexible and the most expensive as well. So I hope you like the content we covered today. So these are the reference links that you can follow to find more information about the Copilot Studio, and the various options are available there. So hopefully the content we covered today made you explore the Copilot Studio and the Azure OpenAI service. And in case you would like to get your hands dirty, then you can sign up for the Microsoft 60 Developer Program. And via that, you can get access to Power Platform services like Power Apps, Power Automate, and Copilot Studio. And Azure. With that, we come to an end. These are my contact details. Please feel to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So with that, thanks for joining us, and please let me know if you have any questions for me.
Oh, super interesting, Prashant. So, yeah, back to back, like a lot of things to be there. I think there are few questions, and
Mhm.
so any limit on the Gen AI for the SharePoint sites? I think you mentioned it's a eight, right?
We already
Four,
addressed
right?
that.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
that's good. I think there was one more. No, I think we covered all from them. One
Perfect.
thing I just need
Mm-hmm.
to understand from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about the SharePoint integration and fetching all of the information from the SharePoint,
Mm-hmm.
how does it reflect to the end users in the particular context? So suppose there's a group of the user X and the group of the user Y, and they both
Mm-hmm.
should see the different results based on the SharePoint because they are from the different entities. How
Mm-hmm.
internally it will work?
So internally, what it does is it makes the call to the graph, Microsoft Graph first, and Microsoft Graph decide based on the security permission or security of the user, which content to use or which search results to use to formulate the end result or end response to the user. So what I'll recommend you to do is just quickly spin up a SharePoint site. And if you have a demo tenant, have a two users inside the SharePoint site in the document library, have two different documents. One document is shared with two users. Second document is shared with one user. Just create a Copilot using this Gen AI and SharePoint Online site, deploy it, and just try to access it using the two different users, and you'll see the result difference over there.